The official opposition has made several changes to its leadership in parliament, while in Mpumalanga, there seem to still be internal ructions between Mary Padi and former public protector uMkhonto. At the same time, just a few days ago, there were rumors that Floyd Shivambu, the Secretary General of the Wesizwe party, would either be resigning or be ousted from the organization. And I have the man of the moment to talk about that. You're already smiling. I mean, it's been about, what, 8 months since you've left the EFF? It's since August 2024. Do you have any regrets? Are you still happy with your decision? How are you finding your leadership style to be in the Wesizwe party?
No, look, when I did not renew my membership of the EFF, and then I joined uMkhonto. In the early stages, I actually had posted on social media to say that this is the best decision I have ever taken politically, and I still stick by that, that joining uMkhonto is the best decision that I've ever taken in my political life, because I got to learn from the rich experience of President Zuma and many other leaders of uMkhonto. I got to even have a much more nuanced understanding of the politics of South Africa, of the continent, and the world, and of course enrich out of a broadly theoretical perspective which we had before. I think it was a necessary and a better, far much more qualitative decision that we took to participate in uMkhonto, and we continue to learn and be guided by President Zuma, who deeply understands our people and is in constant communication and touch with ordinary people in many parts of South Africa, but also has got a proper and correct appreciation of what is happening in the continent, in the African diaspora, and in the progressive world. So it's so far so good in terms of uMkhonto.
So with all those letters flying around, that you've been removed, or that you are possibly resigning, let's clarify that. Are you leaving, or have you been told that any moment from now you could be removed as Secretary General of the uMkhonto party?
So I'm Secretary General of uMkhonto now. Yeah. There is no letter which was written by the president, because there have been people, we don't know where they're from now, whether they're from inside the MK or it's external forces that are trying to sow divisions within the organization, who write fake letters.
With your letterhead?
In the name, yes, they've been doing that, but actually...
Where do they get that? It sounds like it's coming from inside.
So to show that there's a possibility that it may be external forces, so inside uMkhonto, everyone else knows that the logo of uMkhonto has to have a gold circle around it.
Right.
But the fake letters have not been having a letterhead with a gold circle, and it has never been used anywhere else. So all the logos of the letterheads of uMkhonto have had gold circle, but the ones that are fake letters, almost all of them have had either a black or a white circle around the logo of the organization. And the other thing is that I'll never resign from uMkhonto.
Never.
Even if I'm not in any of its leadership structures. I did not join uMkhonto to lead it. I joined uMkhonto to be a member, to campaign for its ideals and a program and vision, because I think that the manner in which it's conceptualized and how President Zuma get to explain what uMkhonto is to all of us, it's a far much more noble perspective that let us constitute a fresh national liberation movement which will draw the best lessons from the struggles against colonialism and apartheid, from the former liberation movement, which will take as well the Freedom Charter and attain all its objectives, because those that were mandated by history have failed dismally to do so, which will also have an appreciation of what the Black Consciousness movement did, which will have an appreciation of what Pan-Africanism in the South African context stood for, which will also have appreciation of those who fight for economic freedom in our lifetime stands for, because there's a proper illustration that he gives that us as black people, we stand for same aspirations because we coincidentally and collectively are oppressed by the system of colonialism and apartheid. So there is no need for us to be stratified into small unviable fiefdoms called political organizations.
Let's talk about how you would characterize right now your relationship with the leader of the MK party, President Jacob Zuma. I mean, how are things there? Are you in the dog box after visiting Shepherd Bushiri in Malawi? I mean, the Daily Maverick is reporting that you're at odds with the leaders and you claimed that he'd given you his blessing.
No, look, do you know, as a Secretary General and like all other Secretaries General and provincial secretaries and regional secretaries would do, there is nothing which I do without informing the president. There is no political program that I engage myself in without making the president aware. And there is no decision that I communicate to the membership of MK and externally without the president knowing.
So he was aware prior to you getting on a plane and going to Malawi. I want us to be specific about that.
Yeah, let me just be specific about that. So when we went to the inauguration of the president of Namibia, Comrade Triple N, she's known as Triple N, in Namibia. So after the inauguration, when we were now at the tables where they were serving lunch after the official inauguration, I did say that we were sitting with former President Joyce Banda and the former President Masisi of Botswana. So Joyce Banda is the former president of Malawi.
Yes.
And then the incumbent president, the deputy president of Malawi called Michael Usi. And they both kept on saying that we want to have engagement with MK. And the president says that the Secretary General is here. He must interact through the Secretary General. If there's going to be further engagement, let's have through the Secretary General. I then went to Malawi during the Easter weekend for political engagements with former President Joyce Banda and current Deputy President Michael Usi. There's elections in Malawi in September.
Yes.
So there were discussions about a variety of issues which are not due for public communication in terms of the approach of the Malawi question. But that was primarily the whole thing. And one thing which I never apologized on and I will never apologize on is when I went to see Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and then he said, let's go to church. I said, I will go to church. I'm like those who say that I am glad when they say unto you, let us go into the house of the Lord. I'm compliant.
Despite the concerns of him evading arrest and what that means for the MK party and what it stands for and constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law.
I honestly
I mean, those were genuine. You can admit those were genuine concerns, right?
No, I think they were misplaced, actually. Like I think there was just unnecessary misplaced exuberance around it because I'm not responsible for law enforcement in South Africa, one, but two, as a matter of fact, there is no court ruling in Malawi within the criminal justice system that links both countries that has instructed that he must be deported to South Africa. If there was such, he would be hiding in Malawi, then that would have made him a fugitive. But currently there is no such because I said in one other interview that if anything, the Malawian government provides security through the state to Prophet Shepherd Bushiri in terms of what he does. There are so many projects that is involved in there which is supported by government and in full collaboration with the government. And the South African government is fully aware of that. It has got nothing to do with me. And you know, going to religious institutions is a personal choice of anyone who can do. I go to so many religious institutions. I go to even religious institutions whose faith I don't associate with for different reasons that we have to do and we have to listen to different people. But I attended the Jesus Nation Church in Malawi, because I had to listen to the sermon on the Easter weekend of 2025, and I don't think that there was anything wrong with that. Like, if South African government
even from
wants,
an optics perspective, yes?
Yeah, if South African government is looking for Shepherd Bushiri, they know what process to follow, and doesn't have to do anything with Floyd. There's no Floyd Shivambu who is going to enforce any law, because I do not have the permissibility and the constitutional or legal legislative right to could enforce any law in South Africa.
But Floyd Shivambu is building up an organization. Floyd Shivambu is part of building the credibility of the uMkhonto Wesizwe party.
Yes.
And where I'm going with this is that there have been many instances where some would say, sure, I mean,
but
Bushiri aside, no.
I don't know if there's any wisdom as well to want to speak about what issue when there's so many other things to speak about.
And that's where I'm going with it, if you let me finish my question.
Okay,
because there have been many instances where there seems to be internal ructions, and you've even detailed when you were still in the youth league, you know, you detailed each year of the ANC up until 100 years. I mean, right now, where the MK party is, you're just a little over a year old, and there's been issues in Mpumalanga between Mary Padi and Wesizwe. There was that social media outburst from Duduzile Zuma against you, and more recently, what many have termed the unceremonious removal of Mzwanele Manyi, by the way. What would you say to the potential voter about this, and to make them believe that these are just teething problems? It's nothing to really signal that there's an implosion on the horizon.
Yeah, so let's categorize the issues. So there are issues which are issues of disciplinary inquiry internally. So as a Secretary General, I can't publicly communicate or speak about issues that are subject of disciplinary inquiry. It's not allowed inside the organization itself, even in a basic legal principle and standard all over the world. There are certain things that you do not want to divert the or date the intention of by making unnecessary reflections on that. So the issues of the outburst that you've mentioned is an issue of disciplinary inquiry. Is not an issue that we can talk about.
And Mzwanele Manyi, what happened there? It seems so out of it. And a lot of the things, so perhaps you can appreciate there's a lot of things that you deal with internally and you say you can't share.
Yeah.
But when you wake up on a Tuesday and there's no ability, and I can vouch for the fact that there was no proper communication until, you know, there's a speaker, Togo Titiza, confirming it officially. I mean, it felt unceremonious. What happened there?
No, look, so, you know, the leadership that is deployed in Parliament gives the leadership collective of the national officials of uMkhonto Wesizwe constant reports and review on who they believe should play which roles at what certain periods of time.
Yeah.
And not because of anything else that Mzwanele did wrongly. There was a firm
his relationship with Dr. John Hlophe.
Yeah, that is not an issue. Like, if anything, the era of governance of uMkhonto Wesizwe and participation in Parliament was beginning to gain stability, which we thought should be enhanced in terms of how it gets to be reported. Like, so, because in the past, we never used to have consolidated reports from the 7 provincial legislatures where MK is represented, and from the councils where uMkhonto Wesizwe has got councillors, and from the National Assembly, National Council of Provinces. And both the Deputy President, who is the party leader in Parliament, and Mzwanele were able to have a system of systematic reporting about all the public representatives of uMkhonto Wesizwe across board. But there was consideration, not because of any wrongdoing, that let us supplement the parliamentary caucus through the designation of Colleen Makubela as a chief whip. And that will add into the work of the organization. Mzwanele will be assigned different responsibilities within the National Assembly, and he will continue to excellently play a role as a public representative.
Would you agree with the analysis that I've solicited, that, you know, somewhat what he described, Dr. Timka described as zigzagging and not having elective conferences, so not having an elected leadership, means that every time there is a difference between a Floyd Shivambu and a Zianda, it is now turned into almost a leadership contest, depending on who can whisper the better murmurings into the MK party president's ear. Is that a fair characterization?
No, I don't think it's a fair observation. Like in all honesty, like elective conferences, if we were to use the existing and the political parties that have got existing political parties, the existing political parties that have been using elections as a determination of how leadership should be chosen, majority of times have not produced quality. Like they've produced those who are master factionalists and have money to buy delegates to conferences.
How would you characterize your leadership style as Floyd Shivambu, the Secretary General of the MK Party, in the context of lots of talk about you being under fire in KwaZulu-Natal and you contending with tribalism, and hence this constant back and forth about a Floyd Shivambu who's on his way out?
I've never had any encounter of tribalism.
From your rank and file?
No, I have never. From rank and file, from the leadership of uMkhonto Wesizwe, I've never got to have such an encounter.
You would say then that you have the respect of the rank and file, but do you also have the same in the leadership structures, i.e. what's your relationship with Duduzile Zuma now? We only got to experience what took place on social media, but like you keep saying, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Are you okay? We've seen you at events together since like, then, so what's it like now?
There's never been any hostility, and there's never been any political difference that I'm aware of. Like, because whenever we interact, it's my sister, my brother, everything is going well. That has been a consistent relationship since I joined uMkhonto Wesizwe.
Let's talk about the hostilities perhaps then between the EFF and the MK party. You've been declared, you know, one of their enemies, but you are consistent with your line about uniting progressive forces. How would you go about repairing, restoring, and mending that relationship? Is that something that you also have as your radar? You know, Secretary General to Secretary General with a Marshal Dlamini, what's taking place there? Because it does have the potential to impact the Progressive Caucus and this overall objective that you also said you left the EFF for to attain.
No, look, you know what, the most dynamic and politically sound thing which the MK did, which we also made a plea that all other political organizations should do, we sat in a meeting of the National High Command to begin to characterize the domestic and global balance of forces. So in our characterization of the domestic balance of forces, we then also got to characterize all the political formations and role players in South Africa. We did characterize to say that the ANC, although it is captured by the white capitalist establishment, is being puppet mastered by Stellenbosch in terms of what it has to achieve. We say that we can't categorize and define the ANC as an enemy force. We say it's a strategic opponent which is contested. It's a contested opponent. So there's a difference between an enemy and an opponent. Enemy you have to crush. You must eliminate completely. You don't talk to enemy. You don't have any engagements at all. But a contested opponent, you contest its ideological character and form and its politics in general, so that it then drifts closer towards what you stand for as an organization. And then you know, our characterization of the EFF is not an enemy force, it's not even an opponent. We say it's a potential strategic ally, which shares the same values and principles with uMkhonto Wesizwe, by and large. And that we know because uMkhonto Wesizwe and the EFF are co-signatories of a charter that unites the Progressive Caucus in Parliament. And that charter speaks politics as to what we stand for. We agree on redress of the imbalances of the past. We don't think what we have now is the status quo must continue forever. We agree that the land must be reclaimed and be given to particularly those who were excluded by apartheid and colonialism. We agree on provision of free education. We agree on anti-imperialism.
So when will it be time to unite?
No, look, I think there has to be a certain degree of political and ideological maturity that happens amongst the individual leaders of all parties, particularly of the EFF, because there is some emotive, subjective reaction to politics, and you can never get politics right if every
Julius
time...
Malema says it will never happen.
So that is the subjectivity which it doesn't seem to be founded on sound ideological and political basis. And you can never get politics right if every time there is a political development, you want to emotionally react to such a circumstance. Then you are in politics for a wrong reason, because politics, you need absolute composure and you need proper temperament to be able to read the balance of forces and not to be emotive about each and every issue, because you'll become personal. Like, you will even miss important opportunities. I'll give an example, Zianda, in terms of what got to happen in the first term when the EFF went to parliament. Because there was, at the leadership level, there was a narrow oppositionist approach to everything else that President Zuma was doing or saying. But if you were go on and check now as to what was President Zuma saying when he was head of state and president, on free education, on the land and everything else, on things which the EFF stands for. But there was no appreciation that here is a head of state who is saying, let us unite all the black political parties to have 2/3 so that we can expropriate land without compensation. He said that in 2017, in the National House of Traditional Leaders in Parliament, he was very clear even about characterization of where our problems come from colonialism. The Freedom Front Plus even fought him vociferously. But because of narrower politics, everything else Zuma says is wrong.
But you were there.
And
I mean, that's why people say
that is where you have to learn from some of the mistakes. I don't want to disassociate myself from some of the collective decisions that were taken there. But there are certain things which I must mention, though, is that I did write publicly, by the way, anyone can search that in Google to say that President Zuma was correct on the following issues, like on several occasions, to illustrate that we need to maximize on what he has said correctly. Mbuyiseni will always remind me that you previously had said we must have a constructive and sometimes confrontational approach with President Zuma. And you were cautioned that everything else that we do with President Zuma must be oppositional, 100%. It doesn't matter whether he is speaking sense, whether he is speaking the politics that you agree with, you are just fighting Zuma. It doesn't matter what are the circumstances. I don't want to be in politics that are narrower like that. I will never be a part of such politics. That is part of the reasons that we had to disassociate with some projects, because you realize that there is no appreciation of different conjunctures and appreciation of real politics. It's about point scoring and wanting to outshine people and wanting to appear much more cleverer and much more radical than everyone else. And the majority of times, that doesn't lead to anything. So then the version of politics of President Zuma is that it doesn't matter what we have said about him before. It doesn't matter what people do. He always finds a way of uniting a common perspective to pursue a progressive agenda. And that is what I appreciate and I am proud to associate with, whether I'm a leader of MK or not.
Floyd Shivambu, the Secretary General of the uMkhonto Wesizwe Party, thank you for your time. Staying, not going anywhere. Whether he is a Secretary General or an ordinary member, so says Floyd Shivambu, but lots on the horizon for the MK Party and a little bit of insight about what's been happening internally. Some of the teething issues, nothing to be worried about.